Okay, well, you made it. We are on day 5 of the 5 days of freelance mini challenge. How have you been doing? Have you been sticking it out? Okay, well, this is a really important lesson. And again, it's just one of those things that I get asked all the time and I see people asking about all the time in this group. So let's talk about pricing your projects, meaning charging a fair price, and that's fair to you and to your expertise. So how do you figure out what to charge? We could give you all of the templates and rubrics and calculators in the world, but really it's part art and it's part science, and the pricing will likely vary from freelancer to freelancer. Let's talk about what really goes into pricing. Now, first I want you to think about, well, how much do I want to make? Really, do you need to be living a certain lifestyle? Do you have bills you need to pay? How much do you want to make? The second consideration is, what's your market rate for your talents? Now, that's not only going to vary by years of expertise, but it might also vary by skills, by the kinds of software you're using, and by industry. For example, the legal and big pharma industries typically pay better than your nonprofits and your higher education entities. Now, the next one is probably the most important thing. How big and how painful is the problem you're solving? If your problem is really big, really complex, and very painful, then there's a good indicator that your client will be willing to pay more for it. If it's something that's nice to have, then there's a chance your client won't be willing to pay the big bucks for it. Finally, remember, you are a freelancer. You only have a finite amount of time in which you can do work and produce income. So think about how much of your time this project will take up. For example, a few years ago, I did a needs analysis project where I had to fly to Arizona and be on site with a client for 10 business days. I was with them basically from the start of their day, which was very early. It was like 7 a.m. to about 3 or 4 in the evening. And during that time, I couldn't answer any other client calls or do other work. I was dedicated to their project. So I had to charge them more because they were costing me business, essentially. I couldn't balance other clients and things. Now I have another client who is one of my lower paying clients. And why I get them the lower rate is because we've been on what's basically a retainer for almost 2 years now. They know my process. We work together quickly. They never flag my stuff. Often we cut out review cycles rather than adding them on. And so I'm happy to give them a lower rate because it costs me less time and less energy to produce their projects, and because I don't have to market for another client to fill their time gap that I know I'll have every month. So let's talk about sales goals next, right? This is that kind of how much do you want to make question. And really there's 2 things I want you to think about here. If you did that financial audit on day 1, what's your base desired income plus expenses? Let's say it's $50,000 plus $25,000 in expenses. That means you need to make $75,000 per year. That $75,000 is your sales goal. You'll get that by looking at your gross profit, which is what you're earning before you take out expenses. This might look like 3 $25,000 projects, 25 $3,000 projects, 300 $250 projects. Really, it's just a matter of breaking it down and finding a combination that will get you to at least $75,000, and that is your sales goal. Now, the other thing I want you to consider is if you can vary that income. It is not sustainable for me to have all freelancing projects where I'm working on the project because I simply don't have that much time where I can dedicate my full energy and focus these days. Think about what works for you. But I know when I look at my sales goals, I break it down into coaching, digital products, and then I look at my freelance work. Now on to our pro tips. My good friend, Dr. Robin Sargent, owner of Idle Courses, freelancing rock star, And the owner of the eLearning Freelancer Bootcamp, that we will post a link to below, has given us some really great pro tips. It's definitely worth listening to what she has to say. First, this is the question, right? Hourly or project-based? Robin says, use hourly rates if you can't nail down the scope of the project. That saves you from underbidding. Use project rates if you want to be able to make a profit and you can get really specific about the scope of the project. Easy enough, right? That leaves you some buffer room to make extra money if you work fast or if you need to outsource work. Okay, the next pro tip is to add 20 to 25% more to your final project price. I've seen this number go up to 50%, just so you know. So definitely always add a buffer to your likely very efficient pricing. The next pro tip, deliver your project price and get your client on the phone. Don't just drop it in their inbox and run away and hope they come back to you and say yes. If you really want this project, say, hey, here's my proposal. Let's set a meeting on X date to discuss. You're way more likely to make the sale if they feel like you're invested and if you can answer questions and explain why you're charging the rates you're charging. Finally, increase your rates as your demand increases. Don't be afraid to charge more, especially if you're getting busy. If you're booked out for months ahead, your prices should increase. Supply and demand, right? Basic supply and demand. So don't be afraid to increase those rates. Again, if you were in a job, you would be getting potentially an annual raise. Make sure you're giving yourself a raise as a freelancer. Okay, well, if you've made it through all 5 days, you should have a really great toolkit for starting or building your freelance business. Now, these were just 5 short videos and 5 short exercises, but if you really want to take the deep dive, then I'm going to recommend that you join us for the eLearning Freelancer Bootcamp. You met my good pals, Dr. Robin Sargent of Idle Courses and Christy Tucker, who's pretty much legendary in our field for her amazing blog, presentation, scenario building. The 3 of us will coach you through your issues. We have bi-weekly lives, and there's 8 weeks worth of content. There's proposal templates, there's contract templates. There's just so much in that boot camp. I can't even begin to describe. So if you really feel like you need a more solid foundation, you want someone to walk you through the step-by-step, you want those tools and templates so you don't have to start from scratch. It's a small investment, $397. Really, it's less than it'll take you to recover probably in just a portion of the first project you get using our tips and tricks. So I highly encourage you to check it out. And if it's for you, I look forward to seeing you inside the bootcamp during our group coaching sessions. Okay, well, that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us.